Good evening. I'm Dr. Imani Brown, the Director for the Social Equity Program for DCR, and I will be your moderator tonight. Tonight is the first session entitled Assessing Your Cannabis Business Readiness in the City of Los Angeles. Now, this is the first presentation of our 2024 Spring Webinar Series. Welcome to this webinar, and it is sponsored by the Department of Cannabis Regulation, the Business Licensing, Compliance, and Technical Assistance Program. Now, BLC programming is designed to assist social equity applicants and licensees in Los Angeles with obtaining a commercial cannabis license and operating a successful cannabis business. Now, before we get started, let's take a moment to review some housekeeping rules. Now, please note that this webinar is being recorded and can be viewed only by DCR's Learning Management System after the editing process takes place. You will be muted with cameras off for the duration of the webinar. This means that your camera and audio functions will not be available to you during the session. However, you will be able to see and hear all the panelists. There is an open chat box where you can interact with one another for networking or comment on the information. Please use caution when sharing personal information in a public forum and keep your questions focused on tonight's topic, please. We encourage questions about tonight's subject matter in the Q&A box. We are gathering and responding to your questions throughout the presentation, and we'll have a Q&A session where you will also get responses in the last portion of tonight's event. You are encouraged to utilize the Q&A box at the bottom pane of your Zoom screen. If you use the Q&A box for questions, everyone will be able to see the questions when they are answered. Finally, please note that tonight's content was not created by the Department of Cannabis Regulation or the City of LA and is for informational purposes only. This information is subject to change and does not replace or supersede the Los Angeles Municipal Code nor constitute legal advice. If you've had specific questions outside of tonight's topic, please call 213-978-0738 during business hours Monday through Thursday, 10 to 4. To speak to a DCR representative. And now I'd like to introduce our esteemed guest presenter, Dr. Delara K. Uscoop. She is a professor, an entrepreneur, and community advocate. Her research programs seek to understand the broader impacts of cannabis legalization and its potential for both therapeutic use and abuse. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Uscoop.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. And it is such a pleasure to be here with you all for this informative webinar series. Again, this is all about assessing your cannabis business readiness in the city of Los Angeles. And today we'll explore key factors that cannabis businesses in the city of Los Angeles should consider when evaluating their readiness for success and growth. So I'm so excited. Let's go ahead and get started. And we'll go to our next slide where we detail our introduction. The city of Los Angeles boasts one of the largest and most dynamic licensed cannabis markets in the world. With a diverse consumer base and evolving regulations, navigating the cannabis landscape requires careful planning and preparation. In this webinar, we'll discuss how to assess your cannabis business readiness to thrive in the Los Angeles market. Business readiness in the Los Angeles cannabis market requires, and also in the industry, requires and involves assessing various factors to ensure compliance, sustainability, and growth. It encompasses regulatory compliance, operational efficiency, market positioning, financial health, corporate and business stability, and community engagement. By evaluating your readiness, you can identify opportunities for improvement and mitigate risks in this competitive market. Let's get into regulatory compliance. Compliance with local and state regulations is paramount for cannabis businesses in the city of Los Angeles. Familiarize yourself with licensing requirements, zoning regulations, product testing standards, and advertising restrictions. Establish robust compliance protocols and stay informed about changes in regulations to avoid legal issues and penalties. And you can find information about regulatory compliance in Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 104.01. And we're actually going to put that link to this municipal code into the chat for your convenience. Operational efficiency. Operational efficiency is essential for maximizing productivity and minimizing costs in your cannabis business. Evaluate your cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and retail processes for efficiency and effectiveness. Consider implementing technology solutions, automation, and streamlined workflows to optimize operations. And we'll move to market positioning. Understanding your target market and positioning your cannabis business effectively is the key to success. Conduct market research to identify consumer preferences, trends, and understand the competitive landscape. Develop a unique value proposition and branding strategy to differentiate your business in the market. And we want to hear from you. We do have the chat box open, so share with us, what is your unique value proposition? Share with us your target audience, and also share with us how your brand is different. So we want to take a moment. We want to hear from you. So feel free to pop that into the chat. Let's talk about your market positioning. Again, what is your unique value proposition? Who is your target audience? And tell us a little bit about how your brand is different. And this evening, as we go through this webinar, there'll be numerous opportunities for you to engage with us, not only in the Q&A box, but also in the comments section. So we really want to hear from you and learn about your cannabis business readiness. And I will be monitoring the chat and lifting up those comments as we move along. Next, on to financial health. Maintaining financial health is critical for the sustainability and growth of your cannabis business. Monitor cash flow, profitability, and expenses closely to ensure financial stability. Secure adequate funding, manage debt responsibly, and invest strategically in growth opportunities. Invest in tax planning and day-to-day cash management to determine your short-term and long-term viability as a profitable business. As we move on to community engagement, here the key is to build positive relationships with the local community. This is essential for long-term success in the cannabis industry. Engage with community stakeholders, neighborhood associations, and advocacy groups to foster goodwill and address concerns. Support community initiatives, events, and charitable causes to demonstrate your commitment to social responsibility. You can work with DCR to identify eligible staff and see one of our coaches on labor planning for your cannabis business. You can also work with DCR to identify community groups who can align with your business goals as it relates to community engagement and also outreach. You can also offer rewards and other incentives to educate community about legal cannabis and the benefits your business brings to the neighborhood. So again, I want to use this for another opportunity for engagement. If you all are forming great relationships with community partners, stakeholders, neighborhood associations in your neighborhood, in your community, we want to hear from you. So I'm going to continue to encourage folks to go ahead and comment in the chat as we move this exciting webinar on assessing cannabis business readiness along. Next, there is a fantastic document that the SBA has prepared in terms of assessing your business readiness. And so there are 7 steps that they outline in terms of planning your business, launching your business, managing and maintaining your business, and then the final step to growing your business. And number 1, that is to develop and finish your business plan. And you might already be in operation, you might already have a business plan, but it's a great idea to review this document annually if you're in business and ensure that it is keeping up with the trends that you are seeing in the marketplace. Second, if you are still moving along in that business development process, ensuring that you're registering your business with the appropriate agencies, both on the state level and also in the local level. Next, identifying financing opportunities, obtaining your local and state licenses, and then also ensuring that you are ready for tax requirements and that you understand those tax requirements and also employer responsibilities. And then finally, that you have business insurance. This is really critical in this space. And we will pop into the chat a resource from the SBA as you think about growing your business, planning your business, launching your business, and maintaining your business. Now, we're really excited to go into a case study of a successful cannabis business in the city of Los Angeles. So we're going to work through this exercise. But as we work through this exercise, we also want to take a moment to hear from you. So if you know of a successful cannabis business in the city of Los Angeles, we want you to share with us what you think makes their journey successful. What has made their journey successful? Let's highlight it. Let's highlight the strategies that they've used, the lessons learned that you understand from them. And we also want to, as we're kind of thinking about successful cannabis businesses in the city of Los Angeles, we want to think about how businesses have addressed key readiness factors to achieve success in this extremely competitive marketplace. So let's take another moment, and I'm going to the chat. I'm waiting for some continued engagement from you, our audience, to share with us a little bit in the chat. Let us know about successful licensed cannabis businesses in the city of Los Angeles, and again, what has made them successful. And as we're monitoring the chat, we'll go through and continue our case study example. So in this case study, we're going to examine how a cannabis business assessed its readiness to enter the Los Angeles market, highlighting key factors, challenges, and strategies for success. So follow along with us. And if you haven't already, I want to hear from you in the chat in terms of successful cannabis businesses that you might be familiar with. Into our case study, we have EFG Cannabis Co. And this is a vertically integrated cannabis company in Los Angeles, California. They specialize in cultivation, manufacturing, and retail. Now, EFG Cannabis Co. has successful operations in other regions, and they've identified the Los Angeles market as a strategic opportunity for expansion. However, entering a new market presented unique challenges and required a comprehensive assessment of business readiness. So let's jump into this case study and get a sense of what EFG Cannabis Co. did to assess their readiness to enter this market. They conducted a thorough assessment of readiness to ensure that they were ready by focusing on key areas or KPIs, key performance indicators. So they first started with regulatory compliance. So for this, they reviewed local and state regulations governing cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and retail in Los Angeles. And they also engaged legal experts to ensure compliance with licensing requirements, zoning regulations, product testing standards, and advertising restrictions. They also developed compliance protocols and standard operating procedures to mitigate legal risks and ensure adherence to regulations. So they did their work on the regulatory end. Let's move forward in the case study with discussing EFG Cannabis Co.'s operational efficiency assessment. In terms of operational efficiency, they evaluated existing operational processes, systems, and workflows to identify areas for improvement. They also invested in technology solutions, automation, and supply chain optimization to enhance efficiency and scalability. They also implemented employee training programs to ensure staff members were well equipped to handle the demands of the Los Angeles market. So they ensured that they were operationally efficient. Let's move to their market positioning. Here, EFG Cannabis Co. conducted market research to understand how consumer preferences, trends, and the competitive landscape in Los Angeles impacted their positioning of their business. They also developed a unique value proposition and branding strategy to differentiate themselves from their competitors. And finally, they also work to establish partnerships with local retail locations, delivery services, and ancillary businesses to expand market reach and visibility. Let's look at how EFG Cannabis Co. assessed its financial health. And for this, they conducted a comprehensive financial analysis to assess cash flow, profitability, and capital requirements for entering the Los Angeles market. They also worked to secure additional funding through equity financing, debt financing, and strategic partnerships to support expansion efforts. And finally, they also work to implement financial management practices to monitor expenses, optimize revenue streams, and also ensure long-term financial sustainability. Now, of course, alongside this process, they did face some challenges. And some of the challenges that EFG Cannabis Co. faced included navigating complex regulatory requirements in the Los Angeles market, and also adapting operational processes and supply chain logistics to meet the unique demands of this densely populated urban environment that is operating with a powerful unlicensed market as competition. And then they also face challenges as it related to competing with larger, well-established brands and retail locations for market share and consumer loyalty in this highly competitive industry and city. Have any of you faced challenges in the market? You might be operating and working through cash flow issues. You might be licensed, but not yet operating. You might be working toward licensing. So we know that there are a host of challenges in this space. And so we'll talk about the ways that this company overcame the challenges, but also some strategies for you and some resources for you to leverage from the Department of Cannabis Regulation, BLC, so that you can strengthen your operation and you can face challenges and position yourself accordingly. So let's talk a little bit about strategies for success from our case study. Continued investment in regulatory compliance, including ongoing training and legal support to ensure adherence to evolving regulations. And what we want you to know is that if you don't already know about the wealth of resources, DCR has a fantastic learning management system. And as we're going through the case study, I know we're putting in links into the chat where you can access webinars, tech tools, resources, and so forth that are already in the learning management system, ready for you to watch and soak in that great information. One of their other strategies for success was that they collaborated with local partners and community organizations to build brand awareness, trust, and again, goodwill within the city of Los Angeles and within their community. And what we also want to continue to lift up, in addition to the learning management system, are also fantastic coaches that are ready to provide you technical assistance and coaching support. And we will continue to populate the chat with these resources that you can use for your business. Also, continuous innovation and adaptation to meet changing consumer preferences and market dynamics, including the introduction of new products and services tailored to the needs of Los Angeles customers. So again, we just recognize that this is an extremely competitive and challenging market to operate in, But the Department of Cannabis Regulation, BLC program, has several resources that are available at your disposal. So we want you to utilize those resources. As we continue to kind of work through the assessment and look through this case study example, this company, EFG Cannabis Co., assessed its readiness to enter and thrive in the Los Angeles cannabis market. And what they did was implement strategic initiatives to address key challenges. And they were able to successfully position themselves for growth and expansion in one of the most difficult and dynamic cannabis markets in the world. And what this case study underscores is the importance of assessing business readiness and developing targeted strategies to navigate complex regulatory environments and achieve success in competitive markets. And again, we want to continue to encourage you to utilize the resources that the DCR BLC program provides. It can save you time, money, and compliance headaches. If you're licensed and not yet opened, this is a resource that you can use. This is for you. If you're already operating and you are unsure or you're facing challenges in your business, this is a resource for you. If you are open and you're thriving, there is great information that you can share with your team from these resources that can continue to enable your business to grow and thrive. So this is also for you. In terms of assessing your entrepreneurship readiness, conduct a self-assessment of your readiness to enter the market. Identify resources, tools, and business development services. Again, we've listed some in the chat that are available to help your cannabis business in the city of Los Angeles enhance its readiness. And then also think about leadership development. And that is something that is ongoing as an entrepreneur. So seek to better understand your emotional intelligence and also your readiness for entrepreneurship. As we conclude, and we're concluding the presentation, but not concluding the webinar because we have a very active Q&A that we want to lift up questions from and have a very rich conversation. Assessing your cannabis business readiness is essential for success and growth in the dynamic licensed Los Angeles market. By evaluating regulatory, compliance, operational efficiency, market positioning, financial health, and community engagement, you can position your business for long-term success. We do hope that you found this webinar to be informative and actionable, and we are so excited to move to the Q&A portion of this conversation. And so we want to encourage you to place your comments into the chat and also enter your questions into the Q&A box.
Thank you so much, Dr. Usku, for a very informative session. As she just iterated, we are going to open this session up for Q&A, and we will have Cheryl Branch, who is the CEO of LA Metro. She'll be joining the Q&A session. Cheryl, will you, thank you, and unmute yourself. We encourage attendees to ask about specific challenges and opportunities and strategies related to assessing a cannabis business readiness in LA. We will not be answering any questions pertaining to anyone's individual or specific licensing issues. Okay, so why don't we just get right into it? I will ask some questions, guys. Question number one, how do we secure funding when there are virtually no banks willing to work with cannabis businesses?
Thank you so much, Dr. B. And I can go ahead and start with that. And then I know Cheryl is itching to answer on this. And this is a great question as it relates to business and financial readiness in the cannabis industry. And there are some small fintech companies and credit unions that do support the industry with cash management solutions and also banking. But what we also want to kind of discuss are the resources that DCR has. So previously, the Department of Cannabis Regulation has hosted various networking opportunities to learn about cannabis and capital and also meet investors. And these events kind of provided the space to learn about creating a successful business plan and an investor pitch and so forth. And so we really want you to lean into the resources and events that this team is putting together, and then also work to expand your network to find the capital. But you have to be mindful that this is a long game, right? So, what are you doing to be ready? What are you doing to create and maintain relationships in the investor or funding space? Right. So the likelihood of being on an elevator and pitching an investor in 60 seconds and them saying, I'm ready to invest in your cannabis business by the time you land on the floor that you were on that elevator traveling to together may not be likely. But meeting an investor, being prepared on that elevator, having that elevator pitch is what is going to be critical to building a relationship and kind of starting that relationship building process. And so we want to continue to lift up that there are some great webinars that are around this area and this topic in the Learning Management System portal. And there are online courses, again, digital resources, and then, of course, educational events. So please stay connected and a part of this community. There are over 90 hours of content on financial planning, marketing, and so forth. So we really want you to stay kind of looped into the DCR BLC ecosystem, but then also leveraging relationships and networking, which is critical as you build your cannabis business and financial kind of stack. Cheryl, I know you wanted to jump in.
Sure, sure. I'd like to also add that, raising capital in this cannabis industry with the federal, regulation, that being one of the key problems, it's all about the basics, which is strengthening your operational systems, your standard operating procedures, your track and trace reporting, your financial fitness. And then this success, this track record, because we're up to 5 years now. So that's a healthy period to begin to document your fitness to attract investors. I do want to validate for some that are here and those that will be watching us through the learning management system. I do want to validate that we went through a period of time where it was very difficult to hold up and achieve this track record. So we want to recognize those super A students that made it through, but we're seeing some positive trends, and that's what we wanted to share here. You've gotten through a lot of risk associated with regulatory actions. You've gotten through state by state differences. You've gotten through the fact that the cannabis is still federally illegal, but we're seeing more private equity, hedge fund investors who previously were more conservative and in some cases restricted, they're now investing in the cannabis space. So the stronger, the more healthy that your operations look on paper, your strategic plan, your business plan, your outcomes, the transparency about how you've been maturing as a whole, the rigorous metrics, the accounting records again, processes, systems, it's all evolving, and you can really back that up in an outstanding report and begin to bring some of these investors to the table. So hope is there, but documenting that growth and that maturity and maintaining some of the peer-to-peer learning. We went through a season where we were not practicing that best practice. And peer-to-peer learning and having those kind of peer-to-peer C-suite tables and chats that we get together, that is going to also help you to prepare. We have a list of credit unions. Was about 25 that they sent us early on, but we've gotten that down to 9. It's about 9 or 10 that are reliable, that we can vouch for them. They've worked with current operators we know, legal and they've been able to get some of the capital. But again, make no mistake that this is going to be an ongoing area as a cannabis entrepreneur that you will nurture and grow to help you, continue to attract, grow the monies that you earn or that you're able to raise, and then also keep going and keep going as we get closer and closer to some of this cash flow barriers built in will get better. So I think that's all I have to add for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So our next question is, what is the best way to navigate through potential partnerships and MSOs with so many mandatory investors? MSO is acronym for multi-state organizations. So.
Do you want to go first, Dr. D, or you want me to talk about this one a little bit, these MSOs?
Yes, I think it would be great if we can tag team on this one. And, there are so many predatory investors that are out there day by day. You look on the news and you're seeing kind of predatory investors in this space. And what is critical is really the legal assistance. You need legal assistance. And obviously, we are not attorneys and cannot give legal advice, but we do encourage you to leverage pro bono legal assistance from the DCR BLC program to navigate contracts and then also corporate agreements, such as operating agreements, partnership agreements that include, and you can ensure that they include the priorities that you want, and then also what is required minimally from compliance. And so you should really understand that contract. What are you agreeing to? What are the terms? What are the, what are the standards that are listed in that document? And you should have a clear, even though it's legal speak, and this is why, sometimes we need attorneys, and we certainly need attorneys to help us kind of decipher these very, very detailed and very verbose, a lot of words, a lot of technical legal jargon. But we need the support of attorneys to really help read and help us understand what is in these agreements. But you need to have a clear understanding for what you are signing and the terms of engagement, and ensuring that the priorities that you want in the document, how you manage the business, what equity splits look like, so forth, what is detailed in that agreement. So, it's really important if you're seriously courting, if an investor is seriously courting you, and you're moving kind of forward in this process, to not sign a contract without ensuring that you have received some assistance. And then I also want to continue to go back to this learning management system, because there are great resources in terms of navigating investor partnerships. And again, continue to stay posted on events that will be helpful to you. And Cheryl, I know you also wanted to jump in here.
I did. I want to toot our horn again for the BLC, because we have a webinar coming up. I think it's May 28th coming up, that will go and take a deep dive into this topic, because we have one of our other colleagues is a lawyer, and she really put together an outstanding summary of some of these issues. So I don't want to give it all away, but I'll give you guys a little teaser. So one of the reasons you need the lawyer, and you can use the DCR pro bono legal services, I can't stress it enough, because sometimes we don't know how to translate what we want, what we don't want, the do's and the don'ts, into an agreement that protects us when there's conflict, when there's disagreement, when there's flat out, I need to exit, right? It's not working for me. So I would emphasize that if you find yourself in a situation with an investor, a partner, it's important that you understand what those operating agreements need to look like. How do the business operations need to flow in order for you to get what you want or what you don't want? You want to avoid that. The do's and the don'ts. It's also about understanding your definition and your purpose. Who are you and how do you want to be listed on paper, right? So sometimes in conversation, in a handshake, those things may not go deep enough. And having a conversation with the pro bono lawyer, they may not be able to do everything you want because you're not retaining them in that fashion, but it's sort of like a readiness course, right? So it's the test before the test, and it will help you to better understand the basic definitions and how do you clarify your purpose and what documents should you share and what things should you not share, the governance structure, what is your voting rights. And I can't say enough about exit strategies, because in business, leaving a partnership, leaving a business is a part of the process. We go through that sometimes. Corporations typically have life cycles, especially when you're talking about what they do. Those are part of the industry standards, and you need to understand that. And social equity business life cycles, they're evolving, but it's still, we have enough information to tell us we need to put more emphasis on this. Dispute resolution. These are some of the things that you would want to think about. How would that be handled? We go to court. If we go to court, who's going to pay who? Right? If I get hit by a bus, this is a part of the exit strategy. Where does my interest go? What are my regulatory obligations? And then my partners, and then my employees, and my creditors, and my family, right? So you want to have all those things. That's your transferability. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you legal advice. These are just some terms I'm familiar with to try to explain the do's and the don'ts of these business partnerships, MSOs, and how to navigate these cold with rapid currents. These waters are tough. So I think I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. All right, another question is, what do you mean by what can be put on the internet and what cannot? Okay.
That was a nice
musical
transition.
interlude.
I know, right.
So again, in this kind of trifurcated system, meaning that there are federal statutes and limitations because cannabis is a Schedule I drug. And then we have state systems, like in the state of California, where cannabis is legalized for commerce. And then we also have the city of Los Angeles that also has a Department of Cannabis Regulation and municipal codes that also set up a regulated environment. So there are 3 different systems that are happening in place. There are particular advertising regulations. So I think, Dr. B, that this question is really trying to get to the heart of what is allowable in terms of compliance and regulation as it relates to cannabis. And so you do want to be really careful in terms of what you put on the internet or your website, because there are limitations in terms of the Department of Cannabis control at the state level. So they obviously, here in the state of California, cannabis is limited. And so that means limited to sale for those who are 21, is only for sale for those who are age 21 and up, with the exception of some folks who are 18 and up and may have some, medical they have some medical kind of workarounds to be able to purchase cannabis. But for the most part, it's not available to those who are under the age of 21. And so there are specific guidelines in terms of the advertising of cannabis. And so to ensure that cannabis advertising, cannabis websites, your social media pages, so forth, are not reaching or appealing to those who are under the age of 21. So it's really trying to protect children and ensuring that the ads are true and do not mislead consumers. And so packaging and ads, your websites, your social media presences, and so forth has to include the necessary warnings and information in a manner that is not ambiguous. So it has to be very clear. And there have to be kind of limits in terms of how products are promoted, right? So you cannot, have a website promotion where you can, give away free product as a part of your promotion process. So you want to ensure that your ads, whether they be on your social media pages. And that's also a challenging environment, which I'll talk about right after this comment, but also that your website is compliant with specific kind of provisions, again, that are aimed at keeping cannabis promotion and sales discreet and not accessible to those who are under the age of 21, which is why, there are those buttons on websites where folks have to go through an age wall of sorts where they have to say that they are age 21 and up. And so again, these standards are established to help prevent and protect consumers against fraud and deception. So you really want to be clear and careful about misleading claims. You want to be clear and ensure that you're not promoting any type of overconsumption, and that you're being very careful about the health and kind of therapeutic claims that are being provided, because you don't want to be accused of providing medical advice and so forth. And so you really want to also be careful about the kind of imagery that is presented, so imagery that, does not appeal to children. So you have to be careful in terms of what you put on your website, the internet, so to speak, and then also what you do on social media pages. And we have some great resources on the BLC LMS around this topic, a whole series that's really dedicated to cannabis marketing. And we bring in different subject matter experts in this space to give you strategies. There might even be one on how you can go viral utilizing different social media platforms. The other piece is, again, given that we're in this system where cannabis is federally illegal, right? It is not recognized for its therapeutic potential at this time. You have to be really careful with the social media pages. They have different kind of governance policies and guidelines in terms of what is allowable on their platform and what is not allowable. But we have some great content, some great beachside chats, and an entire series kind of dedicated to this, that's thinking about the kind of advertising and legal regulations, but that's also giving you some really great strategies that you can leverage as a part of your business. Cheryl, was there anything else that you wanted to say? Oh, and you know what? One other thought just came to mind. You might want to look at other similarly regulated categories. Now, again, I do recognize tobacco and alcohol are considerably different than cannabis, and they are, existing in a different federal kind of framework. But you can kind of look at these other businesses kind of as a thumbnail in terms of how they kind of advertise and in terms of how they market. But keep in mind that there are some great resources that really highlight and discuss this area in greater detail on the BLC learning management system.
I think I would only add, I put in the chat the NCIA's social media guide. We use it all the time. We share it with operators when they ask for suggestions. It really has three, again, key recommendations that I'll just repeat again. And one is that create a social media policy for all of your employees, your consultants, and if you have like brand ambassadors, a lot of folks are using that strategy as well. So consider doing that, because how you behave in the digital space, it reflects on the business. So you want to safeguard that your brand's presence, and it's not just safeguarding, but it's also demonstrating compliance. Also create like a community management guidelines and have some kind of escalation discussion, or even a written protocol if you want to go that far. But certainly have the bare minimum, some digital community management guidelines, and then check that ordinance with the city, check with the state. There's certain things that have to be done. And once again, find yourself some good legal counsel. There's some excellent social equity. They're lawyers, they're good lawyers, but they're also social equity experts. That's how I like to say it. They were good lawyers first, and then they got into this cannabis business, and we're grateful that they did, because they helped to give us some of this information to protect you for your compliance. The truth in advertising standards is where, and the consumer protection, where Dr. Zahar was talking about, making sure nothing is suggestive to children or that can't be misconstrued as something like that, and that you have good written policies in these places where you're advertising, promoting, marketing, educating. Some of us are doing events, you want to make sure that you can say that you're following the do's and avoiding the don'ts. And check in the chat and you'll see a great deck that you can use.
Great. Another question. As a new entrepreneur, what do you recommend I do first to prepare my business to get off to a good start?
Pray.
I was kind of going to start there too, Cheryl. Not necessarily
I'm
praying,
sorry, Dr. B.
but to start really with the entrepreneurial mindset, especially in this cannabis space. So thinking about being resilient, you have to bounce back. Are you resourceful? You're going to, this is a market that is operating legally in the state of California, in the city of Los Angeles, but in a federal, in a federal market that does not recognize cannabis as a legal, it's not legally regulated, right? And so this is a really kind of difficult environment. And so you need to be resourceful and then also solutions oriented. So I would say 4 things, my 4 H's: your heart. Where is your heart? Is your heart ready to survive in this? Are you built for this? Are you built for being an entrepreneur is difficult. I'm an entrepreneur. Cheryl is an entrepreneur. Sometimes the checks don't come in on time, right? But the payroll is still due. Sometimes you're running into supply chain issues, but you have customers that are still at your door. And so it's really about establishing yourself in that mindset to make sure that your heart is in the right place, and knowing that, when you come across challenges, that's what you're built for. You're not built to just survive, but you're built to kind of overcome those obstacles and being resilient. Next, where's your head? So when change happens, when things don't go your way, where's your head? Where is your mindset, right? What plans do you have in place? Are you able to adapt? Are you able to shift? Your hand, right? So you need to be kind of ready. You need to be ready with the resources that are in your hands, right? You need to be ready to work, and you need to kind of have the knowledge that you need. And if there are things that you don't have in terms of, knowledge that you may not have, or, experience that you might not have, the 4th H is that you need a home. So you need a community. You need a community that can help you get resources. So the BLC provides a community. The social equity program provides a community of entrepreneurs who are open to sharing what has worked and what has been successful, and also their challenges, but not only their challenges, but how they have been able to overcome them. So having that kind of home, having that home base and community that can provide you those resources when things kind of go beyond your control, that is so important, to be able to marshal the resources that you need to move quickly and effectively. So my number 1 step will be all about your mindset. And I'll turn it to Cheryl. I know she was saying pray. I think that's a strategy too, but I know you have some other strategies in mind.
I think that's my main one. I would say in this business, as a legal cannabis entrepreneur, we're like pioneers, and so it's going to take some grit, as in GRIT. You have to have that kind of discipline all up and down, the process. So it really, to me, small businesses that become, multi-million-dollar a year businesses, it starts with the leadership. So you're going to have to test your own business readiness, your own business acumen. Can you lead and follow? Sometimes we have to find that inner circle. So this is where I think that the C-suite executives I've seen excel. They create a cabinet. Like they have their secretary of this and secretary of that. So you need a mentor circle. And you want people that are not going to be your yes men or yes women per se. They're going to align with you on your brand values. They're going to align with you on your spending plan and your cash flow management ideas, right? How you want to make ends meet. They're going to meet you there as an entrepreneur, but they're also going to emphasize the key principles and what does it mean to set up, standing up a profitable business. So how are you going to navigate that? And that's really going to come down to the entrepreneur. What kind of leader are you? So having this mentor circle will help you to develop that muscle and always be open to the lessons forward, always be open to pivoting and keeping up with the new things, because things change. As soon as you start believing that you know it all and that you get increasingly uncomfortable to have the kind of advice and truth talk sometimes that we all need, you're in a danger zone in terms of your probabilities for entrepreneurial success. So I really believe starting in this business, it's going to be a strong mentor circle. I also think let go of the rumors. You can't listen to what everybody else is doing. I can't tell you how many coaching sessions I've had where did you get this from? Oh, so-and-so gave me a template. So yeah, not that kind of stuff. So I think a mentor circle, being aware that you have to develop your leadership, you're going to need that grit to compete. This is a very competitive business. And you have regulators that you've got to serve and meet their needs as well. So being able to manage all of these things effectively, efficiently, and still leaving room for growth, and creativity and innovation. It's a special type of person. It's not for everybody. Legal cannabis business operations at every level, it's just not for everybody. So proceed and approach with caution. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, we have time for one more question. As a startup, I can't afford to hire staff. In terms of business readiness, do you recommend I have family work with me? Do I need to pay them minimum wage?
Dr. D, do you want to go first or me?
First, and this is a part of really assessing that readiness. Are you ready to start up your business? Do you have the labor that you need to stand up your operation? And in terms of minimum wage, the city of Los Angeles and the city we know that we have the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation on the line. They can correct me if I am wrong. My understanding is that the minimum wage rate that was set in that's going to be effective as of this year, as of July 1, is $17.38. And so you need to ensure that you are in compliance with all labor laws in the city of Los Angeles, in the state of California, and then also federally. So you do need to be compliant with all labor laws. And again, really assess that readiness in terms of, if you do not feel that you have the labor that you need to be able to stand up your business, maybe you need to take a step back and figure out, what you need to do to ensure that you're at a place of readiness where you can hire and have the staff that you need. And of course, I'm not knocking anyone working with family. I worked with my dad for years in his small business. So we understand that, often we bring in our family, we bring in our community, but we also, as we're doing that work, we need to ensure that we're in compliance with state, federal, and local laws as it relates to labor.
I would also add that on our theme of promoting the BLC, because we think it's fabulous, and we're here to help guide you through. So spread the word for those of you that are listening live and those of you that tune in on the Learning Management System. We're having a webinar that's going to deal with that very subject, how to build your cannabis dream team. And that will be on June 18th. So you want to watch out for 2 upcoming webinars from our team, May 28th and June 18th. I would say stick to the rules of recruitment and hiring. So create the description, the recruitment description, position description, advertisement, and really let family know this is what I need from you, because you want to work through the job function before you start putting the people there. So that's one of those leadership skills I was speaking of in terms of what does it take? It's going to take a leader that can have that conversation with a family member and be responsible to both. You're responsible to yourself, your business, because you're taking the time to put together that recruitment announcement that will include all of the things that you want to see from your family member. Can you do this? Can you do that? Do you have experience in this? Do you have experience in that? So that it's not, a family hire, it's they're qualified for the position. That's the first consideration. And then I think you talk about compensation. Whatever the business can afford, what you can bear per hour. Minimum wage is something to consider, but it really depends on what the role is. I wouldn't want to pay my chief operations officer minimum wage, but if I had to have someone in the role of, I don't know, doing some of the maintenance, that might be a minimum wage role, So I think, again, having some good mentors, taking advantage of some of the coaching to help you think it through will help you to make the right decisions, even for your family members.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. And we do have one final question. Are there low-cost or no-cost methods available to conduct market research and analyze my target audience's needs and preferences?
Wow, this is a great question. And there is a cost. The cost is time to the answer that I have to this one, Dr. Brown. And that is to go in the area that you want to open your retail location or your cannabis business. And this example really works well in the retail space. So you kind of you go and kind of do market research on the ground. So you take a week, or you might take kind of a Monday, a Tuesday, the next week, a Wednesday, the next week, and so forth. And you can stand kind of not directly outside of a local cannabis retailer, but you go in front of the local cannabis retailer in the area that you are kind of targeting to open your business, and then you assess the number of people who are walking in and kind of walking out. So as people walk out, kind of old school tally mark of how many folks, the times, kind of notate, and then you can kind of multiply that by an average basket size. So you might say, $100 in terms of the basket size. And then that'll kind of give you a sense of what folks are spending. And then again, as you're doing more of that market research, you can go to different retail locations and kind of do that kind of preliminary work, at least to get a sense of what folks are spending, when folks are coming, what are the hours that are busy, and kind of you can kind of do that boots on the ground work. Cheryl, do you also have some thoughts in terms of low cost or no cost methods to think about, market research? I kind of gave an example that it works for the retail example, but I know you have some ideas here as well.
I mean, I couldn't add much more than what you've already said, but I definitely think in terms of day-to-day operations, at least weekly, you should develop some kind of rhythm where you're reviewing certain data points. So customer records, CRM will help you to begin to track and see where the trends are, shelf space, first in, first out, those kinds of weekly, even if it's just a dashboard review, will begin to help you train yourself. Because we're talking about those, I'm getting in new, I'm still finding my way around. So I don't want to give you like the academic, ways that you could go about doing this, but you can use simple data sets. We call it administrative data. So some of your sales data, like Dr. Delano said, who's coming in and out, your sales data, your administrative data. You could do some qualitative focus groups in your staff meeting. Ask 3 key questions. Like every time you have a staff meeting, say, okay, this is the boss needs to know, right? And you will ask 3 things and keep a journal of that. And that information will become the foundation and the triangle for you to get to the top of the food chain, where you're really using all the automated tools, some of the AI tools that are available, and we can really introduce you to more complex ways of collecting data. The data is nothing but information to guide your business decisions. So we can break that down to kindergarten for what business decisions do you need to make now, and then you'll use information from these basic sources and go up more and more sophisticated to help guide that decision making. It's not data for data's sake. It's data to use to guide your decisions, your actions, your planning. Where are you going to spend your money? Where are you going to spend less money because it's just simply not working?
Yes. And Cheryl, you know what? You make a really great point. I was kind of thinking of the example of someone who was not in operation, but there are some great beachside chats that we have in the technology area in the learning management system. And it's really about evaluating tech tools and ensuring that the vendors that you are in relationship with for your CRM platforms and so forth make sense for you. And one part of that assessment is really looking at what kind of data offerings they provide. So how you're able to, from that CRM platform and looking at kind of the sales records and so forth, you're able to forecast and make more informed decisions and kind of do some of that market research work. So as you're assessing the platforms, we certainly encourage you to look back at some of those beachside chats all around technology tools that you can use to optimize business efficiencies and so forth, but also around kind of the customer experience. So we have some great subject matter experts that provide really, really helpful ideas, such as the one that I shared, that you can leverage. But that technology that you're using in your business is going to be so critical, not only for the day-to-day operations, but also, as Cheryl pointed to, for kind of thinking about target audiences, your consumer needs and preferences. And then also going back to one of the prior questions, Dr. Brown, that you raised, and I kind of gave the example of the home. It's so important that, kind of your home, your community in the space, that you are engaged. So you can also learn from other retailers, other business owners, not only in the city of Los Angeles, but also in the state of California, to kind of understand trends. And what I have, found in this community, unlike other business, well, in other business communities as well, but because folks are so challenged by the regulatory requirements, the kind of federal requirements, this is really an inviting space, and that there are others in the space who are also business owners, and they're really excited to, communicate with you. They're excited to kind of share best practices, and there are associations that do some of this work for you as well. So make sure that you not only kind of have a relationship and community with other equity entrepreneurs, but other social equity, other partners in the cannabis space, other businesses in the cannabis space, but then also that you're a part of these larger organizations and groups that can provide some of this content for you. They've already done the market research.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, okay. Return on my camera. Thank you so much, Dr. Uscoop and Ms. Branch, for your generous insights and your time this evening. Finally, assessing your cannabis business readiness is essential for success and growth in this dynamic and extremely competitive LA licensed market. Now, please look out for upcoming webinar topics and dates. Go to the DCR website at cannabis@lacity.org. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found this webinar informative and actionable. Wishing you all health and wellness. We'll see you next time. Good night.